In 1970, only 26% of middle-class workers had any kind of education beyond high school. Today, nearly 60% of all jobs in the U.S. economy require higher education. This graph shows very similar results. Most people will work 30 to 40 years at least during their lifetime. So it's important for you to choose a career that supports you financially, but that also makes you happy. And most jobs today require some sort of training or education after high school.
Can students be successful without education after high school?
I believe it's increasingly more difficult for students today to be successful after high school. Of course, there's always, without any education, of course, there are always exceptions to the rule, and we have students who are able to go off and start some technology company without going to college or a university. However, I've seen the statistics. There's enough research out there to show that any type of education after high school is very important, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a 4-year degree. However, education after high school is extremely important.
No, I don't think so. Well, it seems to me to get ahead with a career, or even to meet the right person, there has to be an ability for clear thinking and reasoning and getting along with yourself and getting along with other people. And that's a long process. It unfolds as you grow.
I don't know why anybody would want to try life after high school without training for something. I don't understand just kind of rambling through life and not having a plan. That's just not the way I'm wired. I think you need a plan at all times. I think you need a plan when you're in grade school of where am I going to be in middle school? What do I need to know to do well when I'm in junior high? When I'm in junior high, you need to know what do I need to know about high school. If I'm going to school A, I know that this is really important here. This is what I'm going to do to get prepared for that. So the idea of not having a plan post-high school to me is really scary because I think we live in a really competitive world. I think that kids today are going to grow up in a world that, as competitive as it is now, as competitive as it was when I was growing up, is going to be twice as difficult. So to me, the best thing you can do is to know something. And the best way to learn something is to go to school.
I don't think they can. I think that some people don't go on to get a college degree, but I think we have to continually learn, to continually train, to continually educate ourselves, and sometimes that means self-education, taking the initiative on your own to study and learn so you can do better at whatever job you're doing. But I think to just stop after high school and not continue on in education in any form, would be a disservice, would definitely be a disservice. And I think it's important for people to, if nothing else, self-educate.
I don't think so. Because this day and time, the computer world is very important. So if you don't go to school, then I don't think you will have a successful life.
Well, except for some rarities, like, even the guy who invented Facebook, Zuckerman, I think. Since I don't do Facebook and I'm computer challenged, then it didn't really stick to my mind. But even he had, he may not have graduated, but he had college training. Bill Gates, obviously the same way. And starting Microsoft, he could start some businesses up, and they might be very successful. But it'd be like hoping for a pro basketball or pro football or pro baseball career. Very, very few people are going to make it through. Out of all the people who play high school sports, very few people make it through to pro sports. And very few of those are going to make it any kind of a lengthy career and get the multi-million dollars that they're paying. So you've got to go ahead and train yourself, if nothing else, have a fallback position if you're going to get hurt. Like myself, I thought I'd be a police officer, my entire life. And just a fluke. Ended that in the flash of an eye. So you've got to have more training, and high school diploma doesn't.
Well, so I'd say it's very difficult. I would say that there are exceptions to the rule. There are famous stories you'll hear of people that do well without high school, post-high school training. The people that go on to invent companies and things, but that's pretty rare. What my experience is that folks that don't do training after high school are severely limited in what they're able to do. And the biggest thing with that is you lose choices. They lose choices about where they can live, where they want to live, what kind of car they can drive, if they can drive a car, all of those things. And so the choices become much more limited, whereas people that have more education actually have more choices about where they can live, what they can do, all of those things.
I think it's possible for somebody to be successful. They have to be dedicated, they have to be focused, they have to be intuitively smart, I think, to pursue, to be successful. I think the odds of being successful are a lot greater if you get training and education. I mean, it's just logical, really.
I do think that students can be successful without training after high school. There are certain career fields that you can go into and certain areas that you can go into that do not necessarily require you to have a college degree. And just off the top of my head, I am definitely not an expert on a lot of other areas outside of medicine, so I don't want to say anything incorrect, but I know that there are some other options that are available for some students, or trade, for example. So, if some kids wanted to go to trade school, or, wanted to go into the military, or other options that are not necessarily associated with college, then those are available. But I do believe that there are more options that are available to you if you are actually able to graduate from a university or college program.
I think kids can be successful after high school by either going into, if you don't receive an academic or a scholarship in sports, by going either to the military or finding a good trade school to go into. That would help a lot. If the key is they have to have direction. Without no direction, then you'll end up just sitting at home, jobless, or either in jail or somewhere, on the streets, looking for a gang or somebody to love them, that type of thing.
Well, I would be foolish to say that you won't be successful if you don't get a degree. There are plenty of examples of that. At the same time, it becomes incredibly hard to do the things that you want to do in this world if you are not getting your diploma in high school and then going on to college. More and more we see that doors close for students and they have to work double, triple, quadruply hard to get where they want to go if they don't get those degrees. It makes every sense in this day and in this age to finish off your high school career well and then go to college. You'll need that education to do the things you want to do.
No Excuses University believes that every student has a right to be prepared to attend college, and also that it is the responsibility of the adults at the school to make this a reality. This means you should be talking about college at school. This doesn't mean we're going to have a specific lesson or discussion about college every day, but that means you should feel comfortable discussing your future plans in class, in between classes, and before and after school. Talk about it. There are no excuses.
Do you remember when your middle school teacher told you about college?
I think in high school it was stressed.
That's an interesting question, because in my house it was always kind of understood that we would go to college. My parents were college graduates, and I never thought I would do any differently. So I never really thought about what my teachers did or did not encourage. I didn't always hear it. I don't know that my teachers talked about it. In fact, when we were in junior high, people talked about it being 2 years of your life where you just kind of ran around crazy and then you went to high school and studied seriously. But I do remember a teacher who really pushed us to be our all. All he did was teach a physical education class for me, but he demanded a lot of us, and he demanded that we loved to talk with him, and he challenged us in so many ways. And I think what he was doing is getting us the idea that we could be more than what we thought we could be, and we could do more with our lives than we had ever hoped. And I think that's kind of the starting point of any of this, is that when a teacher looks at you and says, you have got potential and you can do a lot, that's encouraging, and I remember him to this day.
Yes, it was. My PE teacher, he told me, hey man, he says college is very important, There's only a selected few that finish, a lot go, but the whole thing is you got to have a good study habit in order to complete all your goals in education. There's got to be a time for play, there's got to be a time to study. and you have to separate those two. This is what the discussion I had in middle school.
Yes, I do. I can remember being in middle school, and I actually attended middle school at Green Valley Middle School, the old Green Valley, not the new one. And I don't remember exactly what class we were in, but I do remember going through different career fields and career options with some of our teachers, and we would have career day as well, and that was definitely emphasized the importance of college and to myself and to my classmates.
I had a push at home. I'm the oldest of 4 kids. All of my parents' kids went to college. They didn't all graduate in 4 years. Some dropped out and then re-enrolled and ended up getting their degrees later on. But my parents were both college graduates. My dad graduated from University of Southern California. My mom from UCLA. And of course, they had their own rivalry because of that.
Gosh, I don't know if I remember that in middle school, to be honest. In high school, it definitely became predominant after about 10th grade, but I don't remember it in middle school. Although I do recall there was a push for some of the honors classes and stuff like that. They called it college preparatory, although we didn't really know what that meant at the time. But no, I don't remember that being the case in middle school.
Yes, I don't remember any great particular time, but it was always presented to me by other people, my family, and then the local community, and then as I remember in high school, particularly, there was a football coach. Was the first male outside of my family where I began to get a relationship with an older person, began to talk about those kinds of things, and then one thing led to another as I grew older.
I don't remember there not ever being an expectation that I would go to college. I don't remember anybody driving home the idea of college, because I think it was just always understood that I would go to college. And that does not mean that I came from a family where everybody went to college. I'm the first woman in my family to get a college degree. But there was always an expectation that when we went to school, that we would study, that we would do well, and that we would go on to something else. I'm first generation American, so my parents both moved here from Ireland back my mother in the 50s, my father in the 60s. So I come at it from kind of a different point of view in that I don't have this expectation that things are always going to be there, because they weren't there for my parents, and that's the truth. So there was an expectation that because of what they had done and how hard they had worked to build a life in this country, that we would not screw it up. They worked really hard to make sure that we had a chance to go to a good school, that we had a safe place to live, and that we would treat each other well, and that we would treat other people well. So I think there was just always this expectation that we would do well. And I when I meet other kids who grew up first generation in this country, they have a very similar experience to that.
You know what, for me in middle school, I was privileged enough to go to like this magnet special school in Fresno where it was definitely pushed. But at the same time, I had counterparts who were in the regular middle school, so to speak, who didn't have that. And so in my generation, it wasn't pushed to go to college. It was really pushed to graduate, just graduate from high school. And I was glad that I was a part of a program that made it important to go to school, that it was like vital. When you finish high school was not the end. College was the end. I mean, at that time it was really, a 4-year degree. That's where you ended. And if you wanted to, master's was optional, doctorate was optional, but a 4-year degree from my middle school experience was not optional. It was a requirement. And I'm glad that I went to a school that pushed and excelled that, because I don't think I would have, with all the obstacles that I faced during college, I don't think I would have finished had I thought it was something that was optional.
It was discussed, but it wasn't really wasn't played up to where it was a goal. Although, in talking with my parents, that was my ultimate goal. They wanted me to go to college. The realities of that later on were quite different as to the ability to continue to go on to college. As I had mentioned before or alluded to, basically I had to go through school through work to get reimbursed for school that I was taking. Family did not have money to go ahead and send me to college. I was the first in my family to graduate from college. My older sister had started school, and she may have gotten a 2-year AA degree, but she didn't continue on, and none of my other brothers have college experience, at least not where they've graduated. I do know that I was taking college prep courses in middle school, and although I did not have a teacher that to me really sparked my interest until I got into high school. And then I was interested in math. Whether it's algebra, geometry. I had one teacher in particular who it's like opening a window. He made it very easy to understand, and it really caused me to buckle down. It wasn't until high school. Middle school, no.
When I was in middle school, I think the importance of college was discussed by my parents. I was from a college-going family, and so I had that benefit. I don't remember it so much being discussed at the school. I went to a very, very small school with maybe 60 students in my whole class, and a lot of them were farmers, and they knew what they were going to do after high school, and so it did not necessarily include college. However, I was from a college family, and so that's where it was discussed.
Hey. Good to see you. Come on in, let's go.